Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Notes and Quotes podcast. Really glad to have you guys here. Thank you for joining the community. And if you want, you can fill out our listener survey so that we know how to build the best possible podcast for you, because that's exactly who this podcast is for. It's not for me, it is for you, the listener. So I want to hear back from you, whether you hate or love this episode or in between. I want to know. So do me a favor and tell me. Okay. So I'm actually, before we jump in, I'm so incredibly pleased to be recording today. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I think I haven't recorded in a while. And I know that that might seem strange to you guys because you get episodes every week, but I have been away from recording for a while. I pre-recorded a lot of episodes and then I came back and I'm now recording again this week because I needed just a couple weeks off to deal with like other stuff behind the scenes with the podcast that didn't require recording. And now I've done that and I'm back and it's like, oh, I'm back home. It's great. Anyway, so let's get into the topic. Now, I have heard and seen Gen Z talking about this everywhere for so long now. I even think about it myself. I heard it when I was leaving school. I hear it on TikTok. I hear it on Instagram. I even hear it in debates on LinkedIn. The 9 to 5. The 9 to 5 lifestyle. Clocking in at 9 a.m., clocking out at 5:30, whenever you clock out. Oh, the 9 to 5. Is it out of date? Is it something that is no longer appealing to people? Why is it not appealing to people anymore? What happened to the joy and aspiration for the 9 to 5? And why does Gen Z not want to pursue it anymore? What's gone wrong? So today we're talking, as you may assume, about the 9 to 5. I've had my own journey with anxiety and other mental health struggles, and one of the things that did help was therapy. Even though I didn't go consistently, those few sessions definitely made a big difference. To be honest, the first time that I went, I had no idea what to expect. I was definitely nervous sitting across from a total stranger who I was supposed to open up to about a bunch of personal stuff. There were a lot of awkward silences, and I left feeling like maybe therapy just wasn't for me. What I didn't know then was finding the right therapist can take time, and on top of that, it can even be really hard to get an appointment in the first place. That's why I'm genuinely excited that BetterHelp is the paid partner of this episode. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easier. It's an online platform where you can match with a credentialed therapist based on your needs and talk to them in a way that works best for you, whether that's video, phone, or even text. There's also a journaling feature inside the platform if writing things down helps you process. And there's daily group sessions on a variety of topics, so you don't have to go it alone if you don't want to. The best part is if your first therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, switching is super easy so you can find someone you truly connect with. BetterHelp carefully makes sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 5.5-star rating on Trustpilot, it's a platform you can trust. If you're struggling and think you'd benefit from a therapy session, go to betterhelp.com/notes and quotes or choose Notes and Quotes podcast during your sign up and get 10% off your first month of therapy. This could be something that really helps you. Now, back to the episode. Now, the aversion of the 9 to 5 has become so strong that people online are trying to kind of re-glamorize the 9 to 5 lifestyle by doing that uneventful regular day in the life content, because you know those old content create, well, I say old, they're not old, it's like from a couple months ago, just, and for years, doing day in the life stuff, and it's like waking up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym and then going on a run and living this very aesthetically pleasing life, and it's just kind of the that girl kind of mentality or that guy kind of mentality. Now people are doing the opposite of that. They're uneventful days, going to a regular desk job, doing mundane things for about 8 hours, going on their, in between that, obviously the 8 hours, going on their lunch break and coming home, making dinner, maybe walking their dog, maybe going to the gym, going to bed, or rather watching TV, going to bed, and then doing it all again the next day. People have been doing that online, that day in the life of that kind of life. And it is really interesting. It's kind of like an attempt to re-glamorize the 9 to 5 because people have really hated the idea of pursuing a 9 to 5. Even myself, I can speak for myself, have felt kind of mentally drained thinking about going to, well, it's changed recently. And I'll explain later on because I do see the value in a 9 to 5 as well. But when I was coming out of school, and even a few months ago, I used to feel very mentally drained about the idea of going to a mundane job almost every day and sitting there, like having some sort of the same routine day in, day out. It felt uh, like a sentence of something, and it just did not seem appealing. The idea of just living for the weekend sounds like a life sentence for me, and I know that is such an extreme. I know it's an extreme, but that's what it feels like for a lot of Gen Z people today, and I was wondering, why is that? Where has that mentality come from? So, like I said, today we're going to be digging into why Gen Z has such an aversion to the 9 to 5, where that idea has come from, whether it's the nature of a 9 to 5 lifestyle that's actually changing, and what work could possibly and currently does look like for Gen Z that is different to what we have known for generations. So, as you guys may or may not know, every single episode, we start the episode with the quote of the day. And if there's nothing else you take away from this episode, you can always take away the quote of the day, which frames the foundation of our conversations. And today's quote of the day is, I literally could not miss the opportunity. We're talking about a 9 to 5. I'm sure you can guess what the quote will be. It's the iconic Dolly Parton: working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living, barely getting by, it's all taking and no giving. I'm sure almost everyone has heard that 9 to 5 song by Dolly Parton. I'm sure you can hear it playing in your mind now as well. That's an iconic song by an iconic woman. And it's very pertinent to our conversation today. What a way to make a living. It really does feel like all taking and no giving. So I figured before we start, we should set the scene of where Gen Z's head is at. I've kind of given an aside to it, but that's all my personal reflections. So I wanted to hear from other Gen Zs out there. And of course, I went to the most credible source for that: Reddit. Of course. So we're going to go and read through some Reddit entries. From Comfortable Corner 80, they say, I've been working every summer since I was 16, and last summer I did a full-time 9 to 5 internship. I've come to realize I don't want to work 9 to 5 anymore. I spent more time with coworkers than with my own family during that internship. Coming home, knowing I have work the next day, and counting down the days until Friday, it was draining. Seriously, nothing has changed. Boomers, Gen X, and millennials have all worked 9 to 5, and we're stuck in the same cycle. Now, with mass layoffs, offshore hiring, and cost cutting, having a job is considered lucky. There's no wealth left for Gen Z. Boomers hold most of it and will pass it down to millennials soon. Gen Z, on the other hand, have nothing. I just want to pause and say I'm not sure that that's actually true, Comfortable Corner AC, because there are a lot of articles saying that Gen Z is set to become the most wealthy generation. So maybe that's another topic for another episode, but it is something I've been seeing. Anyways, moving on, they continue to say, I'm frustrated. I'm pursuing a career in finance and the hours will be even worse. But the lack of innovation into the 9 to 5 system is shocking. It feels like slavery. Bit of a stretch, I would have to say there. And being rich seems like the only escape, especially with inflation and rising living costs. Now, I would say that I agree with a lot of what they're saying. I do see this mentality happening for people. I do understand the points that they're talking about with the rise of inflation, the rise of living costs, the offshore hiring and mass layoffs, all of that. It's just like the working world nowadays is just really, really scary. And it is very lucky to have a job. And even getting a job, just that regular basic 9 to 5 job, is not as easy as one might think. And it's really, really, really extremely tough for Gen Z as well. Even though there were a couple things in there that I do disagree with, Comfortable Corner 80, but overall, very, very, very good perspective that I think is quite valuable. From Civil Protection Guy, they say, it absolutely sucks working a 9 to 5. You lose the whole day and it's miserable. The only way I found to make it work was to take opening shifts for my job, where I start at 6 a.m. and end at maybe 12:30 p.m. or 2:30 p.m. This way, I at least have most of the afternoon and evening to myself before I work the next day. Or I do a closing shift, get home at 2 a.m. at night, and then get most of the day to myself. Regardless, though, however you do it, you become too tired to be with family. I don't know how we haven't made something that wasn't 9 to 5. So I think from both of those, people are really pushing for a change to the 9 to 5 original system. It seems to not work for a lot of people. It seems to be losing its appeal as well because it does suck up a lot of the core hours of the day. Even when you break up your shifts like civil protection guy is doing, it still can be, it's not very feasible for a lot of people. So it's very interesting that so many people want to turn away from the 9 to 5. From really spicy ramen. Very interesting username, but it is Reddit, so I'm not surprised. I'm a uni student in business and I am so scared to end up working a 9 to 5 I hate. I see many people living a miserable life with a job that they hate, and at the path I'm walking at right now, it feels like I'm headed straight to that direction. My main reason is just because I need freedom. Many people believe a business degree is now useless and the jobs do not pay well. And I can see this happening with my own eyes. I have relatives working for big companies, yet they can't even afford a house. My parents stress getting a degree and to get a normal job, but I do not want to accumulate massive debt only to work a relatively low wage job. That's all you get these days if you can't even get one, and be stuck at a desk building someone else's dream while struggling to even live. My true dream is to create social media. Yeah, I know, far fetched, but it's the only path I could see myself happy in, even if I won't make a crazy amount. I value freedom above all. My question is there a way to make a decent living without being stuck at a 9 to 5 desk job and have true freedom? That one, it, it hit close to home. I think all of these I find very relatable in a lot of different ways, and I think I hear a lot of the same sentiments kind of being stressed through all of them. People are afraid of getting stuck in the 9 to 5. They're afraid of losing control over their lives. They're afraid of the fact that maybe education and that traditional path that our parents set for us, or that they experienced in their own lives when they were our age, is not effective anymore, and now they're lost and they don't know what to do, but they just know they don't want to be miserable. So I think overall the main crux of everything is just a compilation of things: a fear of burnout, a fear of losing freedom. That yearning for fulfillment is massive throughout all of it. I think I feel that as well. And there's just been a higher prioritization of mental health and well-being, which the original 9 to 5 does not value. The original 9 to 5 is not about your mental health and well-being. It soaks up majority hours of the day. It soaks up a lot of free time. It doesn't align with childcare and, other family care responsibilities. It doesn't align with any of that. And it's mainly, the focus would be productivity, pushing profit, pushing outcomes, and high time commitment productivity. So I think because Gen Z has become a lot more aware of the importance of mental health and well-being and has been pushing that, they now realize that the 9 to 5 does not align with that. And also I think that young people have just become a lot more empowered than previous generations when they were our age. And so now we people tend to call it entitlement, but I don't. Some of it is entitlement. Some people who are working in traditional jobs and they work in one for about 2 months and they're immediately ready for a promotion and think that they should get like a 50% boost in salary. That's entitlement. That's a bit much. But I think it's not really entitlement when you really just want to make sure that your well-being is also prioritized as much as how much you produce for the organization that you work for. I think that that's something that young people really value. And the thing about the 9 to 5 is that because it takes up so much time, because the way that inflation and the economy and all of this stuff is looking, you really have a pressure to get a good job so you can just survive. And because of that, you lose that freedom to just choose whatever career you want and just, pursue your dreams because you need to survive. And so we fear getting stuck in a miserable job that takes up so much of our time, that takes away our fulfillment and our drive. And that's something that you really crave when you're a young person as well. You're so full of life. You're so ready to get into the world because it's your first time being free and being an adult, and like you want to experience the world. And now you're forced to kind of just fight for survival. It can be a very humbling feeling. I think one of the things that Gen Z and millennials as well have been turning away from are things like unpaid internships. And this one, unpaid internships are a really interesting thing. Many of us have completely turned away from the idea of supporting unpaid internships or even applying for unpaid internships because the whole notion of paying an experience, it's never sat right with me, because you're doing a lot of the same workload as a paid person, and the experience, yeah, it's great to put on your CV and it's very valuable. I don't doubt that. But people still need to survive. They still need to live. They still need to be treated with respect like you would a regular employee. If you're doing an unpaid internship, I think there are some certain flexibilities that you should allow and less expectations. Don't expect the same thing from an unpaid internship that you do from a paid worker. That's my take on it. But I know that a lot of people have been turning away from unpaid internships completely because of the fact that the nature of unpaid internships right now is that you're expecting the same workload as a regular paid job. And people, of course, can't afford to do unpaid internships because they need to survive now. Overall, generally, I think the this generation, Gen Z, has a greater value for themselves, and we highly, highly value control over our lives. We want more balance, we want more purpose, we want autonomy with our lives, we want the freedom to be able to choose what we want to do with our lives. And I think when we're growing up, we saw things like recessions and COVID and how that impacted our parents and our grandparents who were working and the typical working life. And what that looked like was just not appealing. Everyone was really stressed and miserable. Most people didn't really like the jobs that they were in anyway. And it was just a very stressful time during COVID and during, economic recessions and that kind of thing. And of course, like anyone else, we want to earn money. We also want to have money coupled with freedom, which I have been told in recent times because I've been, on that career growth front. And I've been just thinking about what I want my career to look like, what I want my life to look like in the future. And I want to have that, that money and that freedom at the same time, whilst also contributing to good causes and that kind of thing and doing good for the world. And people who are older than me have been telling me that's an ideal, that's a very, utopian kind of thinking. You need to just get, a good corporate job, earn some money, and do other things that make you happy in life. Don't try and rely on your job to be your only like biggest happy thing. And I'm not thinking I want it to be my biggest happy thing, but I also don't want to sell out and give up my freedom and my fulfillment just for money. And I know that I need to survive, but I still have this idea that I can couple and balance money and freedom and doing good for the world. I think, like me, a lot of Gen Zs have this innate sense of resistance to the idea that the future that they want is idealistic and not reality. We're all very, well, I wouldn't say all, I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of us are very resistant to that mentality of you're asking for too much. And I think it's fair to resist it because the world that we're now growing up in is something that nobody has really ever seen before. Think about AI, think about climate change, think about social justice issues that we're seeing. There've always been social justice issues, yes, but the ones we're seeing today are different from the ones from before. And the way that the world is advancing right now means that it's changing so rapidly. The working world is changing rapidly. People's practices are changing. Society is changing. The economy is, everything's changing. So why can't realities change as well? Why can't what's idealistic become reality? One really good example is remote work. So in the past, the norm would be going into the office every single working day and then coming home and having that be your norm. It was a joy and not even something you'd think about to be able to stay from home and work. That was like that's just something that would be the ideal, and it's idealistic. It's not reality. It's like you need to be in the office. I think that's something that nobody ever really thought about, like, oh, what if I could just constantly just be at home and work from home? Yeah, you did it maybe when you were like sick or something, but having it be the norm, no. If you said that you wanted that to be your future back in, I don't know, 10 years ago, I think a lot of people would have been like, huh, yeah, right, come back to reality. But ever since COVID, now the nature of remote work has become the norm. It's become everyone's reality. Hybrid working has almost become an expectation for people when they're applying for jobs. Employers always put hybrid working or flexible working or potential of part time or potential of remote working in their applications. I see it everywhere. And it has really become that norm. The idea that you can do your job from anywhere around the world is extremely appealing to that yearn for autonomy and freedom that we were talking about before. So now, of course, because they know it's in demand, hybrid working is advertised everywhere, left, right, and center, and young people are jumping at it. There's been so many videos I've seen online of people romanticizing remote working because they work I don't know, in the UK or the US, but they're on holiday in Spain and they're at the hotel, lounge just doing work. And next day, they're in Portugal doing work. It's not always as adventurous as that in reality for remote workers, but the idea that you can work in a cafe one day, work in the library the next day, work from your home or work from your couch or work from, I don't know, 50 miles away from the office is just something that is really, really, really cool now that is ingrained in the nature of Gen Z working life. I think that's the future. That is the now as well. And it just shows that the working world is absolutely changing. So that brings us to the big question: is the nature of working changing for this generation? Is the 9 to 5 still relevant, or is it becoming obsolete? From the research that I can see, and also just observation, because it is my generation, Gen Z seems to be really changing the nature of what their working lives look like today. And I'm talking way beyond remote working. Remote working is one thing, it's kind of the core thing right now, but there has been such a rapid rise in freelance work and self employment and just like gig work. I think I would not be surprised if there was a statistic that stated that Gen Z or just young adults kind of hold the market on freelance and gig work. I really would not be surprised if I saw that. The number of Gen Zs who are trying to diversify their working model and figure out a way to set their own schedules is shocking and also very commendable, I find. People who are not afraid to be entrepreneurs, who are not afraid to take risks, people who are not afraid to be doing multiple different things. Because I think it's also beyond the 9 to 5 and the, you know, not having control over your own free time. I think it's also the fact that Gen Z don't want to be stuck doing things that become mundane to them. And obviously, not every job is going to be mundane. There's some jobs where you're doing something different every single day, which I think is also very appealing to young people and just people in general. But I think knowing that you don't have to be doing the same kind of job every day, you can be freelance and work marketing for a cafe company. And then the next day, you can be doing consulting services for a dog business, whatever it is. Who knows what it is? It's so, so, so diverse. And Gen Z are really actively taking that on. I've been seeing a lot of freelancers and gig workers and self employed people who really value a large portfolio of different kinds of jobs as opposed to one singular job that grants them the freedom that they seek. And even though it doesn't provide them with, let's say, a fixed income, which that is something that I do see as a 9 to 5 benefit, just the value of having a fixed income and knowing there's that stability there. Even though you don't get a fixed income, sometimes Gen Z finds that you might get a higher income than you would if you were to stick in one job. You can work harder and increase your income actively. So they really value that kind of flexibility, even though it can be a bit unstable. But people in that generation are also young. It's time, perfect prime time for them to take risks and figure it out and build that foundation for themselves while also gaining such diverse experiences. I really, really, really am impressed by people who are just going out there and doing it. It's not as quick as like changing my LinkedIn profile to being a freelancer and then boom, all these clients start coming. It's not like that at all. It's grueling and it takes a lot of time, and that's why I admire people for doing it. However, in defense of the 9 to 5, I will say it is such a staple in our lives. It's got so much history, and it's hard for me to see it just kind of go away. Not in the sense that, oh, I'll miss it, but it's hard for me to imagine it going away because of how ingrained it is into our society. But who knows? I mean, nobody could have imagined Google or the internet or the fact that COVID would erupt and change our lives so much. So it might not be something that I actually can imagine, and it might happen that, the 9 to 5 actually erodes over time, or it stays as a staple in our lives and it just changes its nature, which is, I think, what we're really starting to see now. Yeah, overall, I don't think I see it going away completely, but it definitely is evolving. And the reason that I see 9 to 5 sticking around beyond the fact that it's very historical, I think that there is a benefit to the 9 to 5. One, there is really a high benefit to having that work life balance and structure with a 9 to 5 that you don't get when you're working freelance and you're self employed and you're gig working and you are controlling your schedule. You have to be really disciplined to be able to work like that and still have a work-life balance. Because for me, I work a 9 to 5, but only 3 days a week. And then the rest of the days I'm working on the podcast. You would think if I was disciplined enough that Thursday and Friday, because I work Monday to Wednesday in the 9 to 5, Thursday and Friday could be my podcast days. But on Thursday, I'm like, oh, I'm so exhausted from, the 9 to 5 work. I'm going to do like a little bit here and there on the podcast. And then even if I do have a really productive day and I work 9 to 5, I'm still working well past that 5 o'clock mark because I don't have anywhere to leave. I'm still in my room. I'm still in my bedroom. And I might have an email come through and I see it because it's on my regular laptop that I watch Netflix on. And I'm going to respond to it, or I'm going to realize, I've got some free time. Why don't I edit? I bring more work to myself, or sometimes I might not be as disciplined and not work as hard that day. And now I've got to work on the weekends. The work-life balance is not very feasible unless you're really disciplined when you're working freelance and self-employed and doing gig work. It can be tough. But when you are working a 9 to 5, that in the traditional sense, you're going into the office, or even if you're doing it remotely and you have a specific time that you sign off, you have to leave. When I'm working in my current 9 to 5, I might be really locked in to the work I'm doing when 4:45 hits. I could be sending emails, I could be editing things, I could be drafting documents, I could be doing whatever. But I know when 5 o'clock hits and I see all the other workers getting up and going, I cannot legally stay because the building's going to be shut and I need to leave. I can't not leave. I will have to leave it till tomorrow. And I really value that, especially as somebody who tends to be a bit of a workaholic. I really, really, really value the fact that the 9 to 5 brings such a strict structure in place for you. I'm not waking up at 2 a.m. because a thought came into my mind and I want to work on it. I can't do that because I'm not in the office. I can't do that because I'm not allowed to work at those hours. But when I'm working for myself, I can do whatever I want. And then my weekends start to not become my weekends because I'm now letting work trickle into those. So I think there's a real work-life balance structure with the 9 to 5. Depends on where you work though. Sometimes people tend to not respect the work-life balance, but that's a different thing. This is another one that I definitely benefit from, that I did not realize I benefited from. In-person work that provides you with social interaction. And when I say social interaction, I don't mean that it needs to be going out and having fun with your colleagues. I just mean being around other people, interacting with other people in the office. That's all it is when I talk about social interaction. And in-person work really, really, really provides that, and you get that directly from the 9 to 5. Before my current job, I had always worked remotely, and it was fine. And yeah, I got social interaction through like meetings online or something, but when you're working in person, there's just something about waking up every day and getting dressed and going to the office and saying good morning, having, your morning cup of coffee or tea with everyone, talking for a little bit, going to work, doing the work day, having a laugh every now and then, talking to other people about things that are going on, going on a walk and then coming back, or going on a walk with your colleagues, or potentially going out with your colleagues after work. Or if you're not even doing that, just interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, I think is really valuable, because I used to get so lonely working remotely all the time. I even say, with my current job, I have the flexibility of being able to work from home if I want to, as and when. But I rarely, rarely, rarely ever do. Beyond the fact that it is valuable for me to be in the office for the job and the work that I do, it's also just beneficial for my mental well-being. Because why would I want to stay stuck inside my house all the time? And I don't need to. I could go to a cafe and stuff, but I want to have that feeling of being in the office. There's just something about it. I don't know. It makes me feel like a big girl. And I also just really like being able to interact with people. I think it's good for you. And also, the last benefit that I think is quite valuable is just the separation of work areas and home areas. As you can see, if you're on YouTube and you're watching, I'm in my room. I'm in my bedroom. The podcast is my second job, and everything happens in here or in other aspects of my house or in a cafe nearby or something. And you know what? It's not the best, because it's not a separation between work areas and home areas. This desk isn't just somewhere that I can like sit and have breakfast and, watch TV in the morning or something. It's also my work desk. And there's something really valuable when you have a designated work area and a designated home and recreation area. They always say to you, actually, that you shouldn't work in your bed for two reasons. One, you're probably not going to be as productive because when you get into bed, your brain then tells you it's time for sleep and you become less productive. On the opposite side, if you continuously work in your bed, when it's time for sleep, it can be harder for you to fall asleep then because your brain is thinking, this is a work area. It's not clear to me whether I'm supposed to be working or I'm supposed to be resting because I use this area for both. So I'm unsure. Your nervous system gets a bit wonky. So that separation of having a work area with your 9 to 5 and going into the office and having a home area is really, really beneficial for your mental well being as well. All of those benefits I said just now, work life balance and structure, in person work and socializing, and that separation between a work and home life, all of that's really good for your mental well being. Just like there are negatives to the 9 to 5 that are bad for your mental well being as well. I think the future of work for Gen Z, it's it's going to be mixed. It's going to be mixed. Some will go completely left field and go against the 9 to 5 and just go towards being their own entrepreneurs or doing freelancing. And some will stay, some will stay with the 9 to 5, but change the nature of it. They may be working in the office 2 days a week and at home the rest, or they may be demanding more transparency at work, whether it's in salary transparency or transparency about what can and can't get done, in terms of priorities and capacity, transparency about career growth opportunities that they want. Or people might only go for careers that align with their values as opposed to just going for careers that solely pay the bills. There's so many different things that I see Gen Z trending towards, and it really interests me as to how the working world will look like in maybe the next 10 or 5 years. Maybe 5 years is too short. Maybe 10 years. The next 10 years, I think it's really interesting to see how things are going to go. But overall, one thing is very clear, one thing is very true. Gen Z just wants to be happy. They want to be fulfilled. They want to have that freedom. They want to have that autonomy and happiness within their lives. I think Gen Z also feels uniquely that, and it might not be for everyone, but I think a large proportion of Gen Z is very aware of the world right now. And maybe we feel like we have a shorter time on Earth because of, you know, political instability, climate change, wars, everything else that's going on in the world. And maybe we just don't want to end up as miserable as our parents might have been, or our grandparents, or other people, the other colleagues we see in our 9 to 5s. And like I said, this might not be for everyone. This might not be everyone's perspective, but I think it is a large perspective. And we saw that with the quotes and the confessions from people on Reddit that are having those discussions. Or maybe the reason that I'm assessing is completely wrong and it's a completely other reason, or maybe it's all of them together. I don't know, but this is my assessment, I think, of where Gen Z is headed, why they are where they are in terms of mentality on the 9 to 5, and where I think the way of work is heading. So that's all I have for you guys today. I really hope you enjoyed. Thank you so, so much for listening. If you want, you can engage us more on the socials. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. Video is exclusively on YouTube. That's where you'd be seeing me talking in my room / workspace to you. And I will see you again next Tuesday for another episode of the Notes and Quotes podcast. Anyway, I'm going to go on a walk because I haven't really left my house much for today. I did leave in the morning, to be fair. I did actually go do things in the morning, but then I came back and I've been sitting on the couch for a very long time until I came and recorded this. And now I will go for a walk because it's good for me. Anyway, love you all. I'll talk to you again next week. See you later. Have a great night or day or whatever time it is where you are. Bye.